Hello guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome to the Popcorn Podcast. This is episode number 54. I'm joined by Clara. Essentially, what I want to say is kind of the start of a new sort of mini-series that we're doing here on the podcast. To anyone who's been watching this channel for over, I want to say like 2-3 years now, all the OGs watching will know that every single month I did a retrospect looking back on all my letterboxed watches in that specific month. So I went by January, February, March, April, May, and I kind of had like a nice kind of tie up, round up kind of episode that sort of gave quick little mini reviews, so to speak, on basically everything that I had watched on Letterboxd during that month, which would of course include new releases as well as old releases, first time watches for me, films that I have watched many times, really bad films, really great films. So kind of a whole nice kind of range of films to talk about. So I thought I'd somewhat try and bring that back. And of course, today's companion, no pun intended, is Clara.
No.
So I thought also January and just in general months work better sitting down with Clara to talk about, just because we more or less sort of watch all the same films together. There'll be a couple films that I watch without you and you watch without me, but in January, basically, more or less, everything was kind of the pair of us. So we are going to go date by date and kind of just get a good kind of cover on everything that we watch. I will leave timestamps along the timeline of this video, so any films that you guys want to quickly jump to hear our thoughts, you can. And of course, any ones that you haven't seen yet, you can skip out, because we'll be talking a couple of spoilers for each of those films. So yep, there you go. Welcome to this new series, Clara.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So, the first film that the pair of us watched during 2025 was Robert Eggers' The Northman. So, of course, this was in prep for Nosferatu. So, the previous two kind of films that we had watched were The Witch and The Lighthouse, both of which I had seen, none of which you had seen before. So Robert Eggers, very quickly, thoughts on him as a filmmaker, Clara, as someone who's never seen his work before, and of course The Northman as well.
Yeah, no, I was sort of blown away by his work, stuff that I'd never really seen done in that way before. His sort of the mythological imagery, the kind of folktale stuff he delves into was amazing, and I really, really loved The Northman as well.
Yeah. See, this is the thing. Going into Robert Eggers' film, I was eager to ask Clara at the end of it which of the three of them at the time before Nosferatu were her favorite, and I was so convinced that it wasn't going to be The Northman. I mean, The Northman for me is such a plot twist that. Yeah,
no, my favorite was definitely The Northman. Lots of people say The Lighthouse is their favorite / the best, and for me, didn't particularly touch me. I feel like I need to go back and give it a rewatch.
I think it is definitely better on the rewatch. On the first watch, it's kind of like this sort of ball of just insaneness, and it's brilliant. And I do think ultimately, I think The Northman is probably, if I was to pick which of those films defines Robert Eggers most as a filmmaker, I would say The Lighthouse. And I think ultimately maybe it's the best, but that's the brilliant thing about him, is you can kind of go for any four at this point. But why did you like The Northman so much then?
Well, firstly, I love it for the same reason I love all his films. I think he's like the visual aspect. He brings everything. Like I said, the kind of folklore, mythology, all that imagery I think is amazing. It's like unbelievably well acted, well cast, so thought through, so gripping. But why specifically I like The Northman so much, I mean, you know this about me, I'm very Marmite when it comes to revenge stories. They can either really piss me off or I really, really like them.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing for me, or the thing that, not the worst thing, but the thing that really like irks me is a revenge story where you don't really empathize with the revenge. Where you're like, oh, this wife that I never met sadly passed, and we don't really know why, and we don't really know anything about their relationship, but I'm now rooting for revenge for the rest of the story. And it does feel a bit just empty and a bit bland.
Yeah.
So I really kind of liked this revenge story that I'd never really seen anything like it before, where it's sort of the main character you're both rooting for, and you know he's evil, and that his revenge is ultimately really flawed, but at the same time you're there for it and it's satisfying and it's brilliant. And I just think, I just have never seen it done quite in that way, and I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah,
there's a moment that Alexander Skarsgård, Amlet, his character, has towards the kind of end of the film where, you know, the entire film he's been on this quest to get revenge for his father from this one essentially one figure, his uncle. And towards the end, things sort of to spiral out of control, and he does things that he instantly is so shocked by and didn't think, he would be capable of. And that's the moment where you're like, holy shit, like, it's consistently a complex revenge tale, but that is the moment where you're like, oh shit, like.
Yeah, but even that like one take in the village almost that sets up his character.
Oh yeah.
You're like in a lot of films, and again, like, I do think Gladiator is a brilliant film, but for example, sort of some of the opening of Gladiator is his sort of conquest.
Yeah.
And his sort of like battles, and it's all done from such a heroic standpoint. So it was kind of interesting the way that, again, like a lot of these kind of tales, we're starting off with a conquering or like some sort of battle.
Yeah.
But instead of doing the like, they're heroes, it was very much like, no, like these people are the sort of evil people, yet you're still empathetic. I thought it was just clever.
The thing is, for me, I don't actually think it's as easy as just labeling it evil, because I just think, I know it is definitely wrong, of course, like raping and pillaging, of course, just in case. But of course, that's just a portrayal of the culture and the Viking kind of aesthetic at the time, and so many films neglect portraying true kind of mythology, so to speak. They just want to focus on the hero's journey and painting everything to be like in a kind of a good versus evil kind of way, whereas this story and this world is a world where Robert Eggers paints it to be very much how it is. There's good and bad, and he's not afraid to show the brutalities and the ugly side of the world, essentially. And that long take sequence is incredible. It's probably the sequence in the film.
Oh my god, yeah, terrifying.
Yeah,
so terrifying.
It's brilliant.
No, I completely agree with you about that. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say that.
No, of course.
No, I completely.
Also, Alexander Skarsgård's traps in that film. Jesus Christ. But moving on, the next day we did manage to, we came back, we took a break away over the New Year's, and then we finally came back to London, met up with Anya and Isaac, and we went to the Leicester Square IMAX to watch Nosferatu. I've already given my thoughts on the film, and I still really enjoy it. If you want to check out my thoughts, I've did a full review with Mickey, which I will leave down in the description box. But very quickly, your thoughts on Nosferatu?
I really loved it. I thought the acting, Lily Rose Depp, I'd seen her in like The King, but I thought she was, like an amazing performance, really great. Again, the filmmaking.
So committed,
totally. Filmmaking insane, like really, really good. I can't lie, was mildly off-put by the moustache, but definitely came out of that film like deeply disturbed. And I had a few friends from uni go and watch it recently, and they were like, "Oh, what did you think? What did you think? Was it scary?" And I was like, "I wouldn't say scary. I'd more say like it doesn't come out from under your skin anytime soon." Like,
no, definitely not. Like, it's a film that basically has the dirt underneath its fingernails, kind of thing. It's a beautifully shot film, but it is very ugly and dark and just
exactly.
But moving on, we finally watched a film that has, been getting a lot of awards buzz, and a lot of, the folks that we had on for the season finale of last year loved. And ultimately, it was Hashi and Mo from Small Time Critics who spoke about the film on the season finale of last year's series of the podcast, which you can check out. And that, of course, was Sing Sing, which stars Colman Domingo. That was the next film that the pair of us watched. Finally saw the film. It was quite late at night when we watched it, but we did manage to check it out. I really like the film. I don't think it's quite a masterpiece. I think a lot of people are like giving it 5 stars, and I'm like, oh my, like this is one of the best films of the decade. I wouldn't go that far, but I think it's tackling a really, really interesting and I want to say unique, because you don't really kind of see that premise played around that much in Hollywood nowadays. This idea of focusing on people who are within the prison system, who are clearly there because they are troubled people themselves, but also just finding a common sort of passion or a form of escapism. In this instance, it is through theatre, and seeing how that changes relationships, forges new friendships, and how one can feel so fulfilled as a result of just doing that, and how much joy that can bring to someone's life. And I think Colman Domingo is one of the, gives one of the best performances of the year. Also, one thing I really loved about it was just how kind of 2000s-y it kind of felt for me. Nostalgia-wise, I wouldn't really have gone into that film thinking I was going to get some sort of nostalgic kick. But at the same time, I can't really describe it, but it sort of falls in line with a similar feel to films like Half Nelson. If you've seen that film, it's with Ryan Gosling where he plays a school teacher. That kind of really sort of raw indie, early 2000s kind of vibes. That's what I got from Sing Sing, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I kind of want to check it out again to see if that sort of have a
No, like you said, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily give it 5 out of 5 as a film just because its filmmaking was quite like you said, sort of early 2000s, things that are like nostalgic but we've seen before, but the story was super engaging, heartfelt, honest. I was really sort of taken along, and they didn't try, I felt like, and often when you see things that are meant to be sort of, uplifting stories about real life events, I feel like it's often like overplayed and it's too much like, now we are best friends and go and like it just feel like you can know what beats are coming, they're over exaggerated, but the writing I thought was brilliant in that the sort of the male friendship that you follow, so much goes unspoken and so much is sort of subtext, but they do genuinely care about each other as much as they fight and joke and all of these things. You can tell that undertone of like real care for each other, and I think that was for me the strength of the film. Yeah,
definitely. It's a good point. Something I forgot to mention was the fact that most of the cast are former inmates and people who have been through the judicial system in America and the prison system, and it's such an authentic film. It doesn't feel pretentious whatsoever. And whenever a film is able to instantly establish that kind of level of connection with you, it's always so great. And Sing Sing, it was definitely there. Yeah. Up next, though, we take a rather kind of sad turn here because so the next film me and Clara watched together was Mulholland Drive. And of course, within the last month, David Lynch passed away. And I think literally, I want to say around two weeks after we saw Mulholland Drive. And this is the first time I've ever seen Mulholland Drive. And David Lynch as a filmmaker was always one that I was so ready to finally sit down and start getting into and figuring out who he was as a person and a filmmaker and a storyteller, and what his unique voice in the industry was, because I know how many people around me in the film community worldwide, globally, his work has inspired and has connected with. And you have heroes of mine like Steven Spielberg talk so highly of him. So he was a filmmaker that I was very much just starting to get into. We had previously seen Blue Velvet last year, which we loved. I was blown away by the film, but Mulholland Drive on another level was an instant masterpiece for me. Like I think that film is incredible. Everything David Lynch is praised for, this sort of surreal kind of take on life, essentially, and how he is such a master of tone, how he's able to bring this psychedelic, dreamlike approach, and then have his films be a thriller, have his films also be a comedy and a satire, have his films be scary but also hilarious, but like dark and also warm as well at the same time. Mulholland Drive was a film we both walked out and were scratching our heads over, like, oh, what have we just seen, kind of thing. First time you watch Mulholland Drive, there's no way you got every single thing there. So of course that film has a timeless quality to which I'm very much looking forward to revisiting. But I was so blown away by that film. We went to the Prince Charles at Leicester Square, which we will talk about very soon. But we went to the Prince Charles, saw it in 35mm with a full audience, and it was incredible. I thoroughly loved that film so much. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like I feel like you've said most of it.
Sorry. I'm going to let you go for first for the next one.
But no, I thought it was brilliant. Like you said, in my opinion, don't tear me down. But one of the greatest thing about David Lynch, like you said, is that he can play with genre and do it perfectly.
Yeah.
That, you know, you're terrified, then you're laughing, then you're like, oh my God, this is true love. Oh my God, no, this is, you know, toxic and treacherous, and I feel uncomfortable, and no, I'm so happy. Like, it is the roller coaster in every film is just amazing. But yeah, we were definitely leaving and going, oh my God, but that means that at the beginning that meant actually this, and this means this, and oh my God, like it was an exciting experience. But yeah, shout out to the Prince Charles.
Shout out to the Prince Charles, because recently we've heard that the Prince Charles might indeed sadly be closing down come 6 months. It's a cornerstone of cinema here in the UK. It's in London, it's in central London. It is beloved by so many, you know, film lovers, ourselves included. So many directors and actors know that place very, very well. It is it's a place that oozes. It's a place that hosts cinephiles, the most, the strongest of film purists, but also people who are just getting into film. And, you know, it's known for showing classics as well as new releases. And it's just such a genuine place where whenever you walk in, you know, you feel like you're with, or at least I do. I feel like I'm kind of with my people there. Everyone there is on a similar kind of wavelength. Here, there to, you know, no nonsense, no talking during the film. Like, it's a very, very safe place to watch a film, and it's a great place to watch a film as well.
Yeah, it's so unpretentious. So just like their program is so wide, anything, everything.
They do all-night marathons.
Yeah.
They do, you know,
go from sort of crazy silly horror films to David Lynch to like anything that you want to see they have on their program most of the time.
The animated films, comic book films even as well. They do Lord of the Rings marathon, so of course if you haven't seen the Lord of the Rings films, that's a great place to just go and spend an entire... We did Interstellar and 70 mil there.
As well as, it's just
In the Mood for Love. A lot of Wong Kar-wai films are there if you want to get into, you know, foreign films. That's a great place to go. Yeah, I mean, it's I would say it's the closest I have ever felt to, you know, kind of being in an environment that feels like the old school cinema that Tarantino and Scorsese and Spielberg will talk about going when they were younger. That's the place you want to go to really feel the magic of cinema, I would say, in London. You know, I talk so highly of, you know, the IMAX, which is just right around the corner from the Prince Charles, but the Prince Charles is such a, you know, it's a
cultural place.
It's a cultural, you know, cornerstone of London, and it's such a beloved location, and we love it, and we don't want to see it go. So
please sign the petition.
I will leave a link to the petition down below in the description box if you want to sign it. It takes like 5 seconds. So please do go ahead. We love that place. So yeah, R.I.P. David Lynch, and we hope to also see the Prince Charles continue.
Save the Prince Charles.
Save the PCC. That's what it is. Moving on. The pair of us watched Red Rooms. So this was a film that had been slowly creeping up on my radar in my kind of Letterboxd community. I'd seen a couple of people check this film out. It is a French film that is originally titled Le Chambre Rouge.
Canadian, no?
Yeah, French Canadian, directed by Pascal Plante. And in case you haven't heard of Red Rooms, I will give you guys a brief plot synopsis. So, the high-profile case of serial killer Ludovic Chevalier has just gone to trial, and Kellyanne is obsessed. When reality blurs with her morbid fantasies, she goes down a dark path to seek the final piece of the case's puzzle. Do you want to kick this one off? Because I feel like I've done a lot of talking.
So I feel like I really wasn't sure what to expect from this film at all. I was...
By the way, I just want to say I love doing that. I love when I know a little bit about the film and I'm just like, but not fully, but you have literally no idea what to expect.
Sometimes he'll be like, oh, let me pick a film for us to watch. I'll be like, okay, great, what film? And you'll be like, no, it's a surprise.
Yeah, we're not saying anything.
I'll be like, is it going to be a comedy? Is it going to be like some thriller? But yeah,
this is definitely not a comedy.
Yeah, no, I knew it sort of vaguely. I knew it was a sort of trial kind of thing. But yeah, no, I really didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know anything going in. I felt like this film took me into a lot of sort of very dark places.
Yeah.
Very sort of on the edge of my seat the whole way through. Very well acted. It is, I felt like, ultimately though, a little bit, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, a little bit shallow. Like it took me through the story. It kept me on the edge of my seat. But I didn't really feel like going away from it that I was left with that much, or that there was that much really to it. But you can tell me I'm wrong.
I do think you're wrong. However, I understand kind of what you're saying, because I felt like with Red Rooms, I was simultaneously blown away but frustrated with the film. I think, in all honesty, this film has a lot of makings of like a modern thriller masterpiece. I really, really think it's a great. Similar to you, I didn't really know what to expect, and I have never seen a film quite like this. You know, the perspective of this trial is something I've never kind of seen before, and you don't really know where the film is ever going. That was kind of one of the things. I was watching the film and I was like, I can't see the ending. I can't see where it's leading. And then sort of in the final act, it kind of slowly all starts to piece together, all starts to come together. But I think it is very, telling and dense about society and how we perceive Go on.
Wondering, have you watched a lot of true crime and things?
No,
like
I haven't. This is probably what it is.
Because I feel like it gave me very much a lot of the sort of, and I don't watch loads of true crime, but I have watched a bit, and it gave me very much sort of a true crime documentary kind of thing. But with sort of, you're following these two girls, these two women characters through it, who are also following this trial.
Yeah.
One of which who's sort of in love with the killer, and one of which her motives are questionable. We don't know. That's our lead.
Yeah.
And so I felt like it was a little bit like watching a true crime documentary with not a lot. I've seen a lot of, what's sort of the moral way to do a trial, sort of innocent until proved guilty, the repercussions for the family, what lawyers can and can't do, and how they can play on the jury. I feel like those questions they were asking were things that I'd seen before, so I was a bit less. And I felt like the two main women we were following, the one that was sort of in love with the murderer, had slightly more of an interesting storyline, but again, very one-dimensional. We kind of knew where it was going. And the main character storyline was just so unbelievable that, like, by the ending and the culmination where she kind of saves the day, it just felt like a little bit ridiculous. And so I guess I felt it just didn't really know what it wanted to be. It just sort of set itself in this true crime world. That's sort of what I felt. So
for me, I really I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting piece just because it had so much. I felt like it had a lot to say about true crime and how we as a society perceive those kind of cases, the sensationalism aspect from it, and you have those two women, one of which who is in the minority and is sort of siding with the accused, and the other who is obsessed with the case, but is an incredibly cold and dark character who you never really get to know. And I don't think I'm not sitting here saying oh my God, I really would have loved a backstory, or I really want to know who this character was. We spend a lot of time with her. We spend a lot of time seeing what she does on a day-to-day basis, whether that be the food she eats or the workouts she does, and those habitual activities you tell a lot about the character. But I felt like the only thing it was kind of telling me is just genuinely how cold, detached and psychotic she was. And to follow a character like that all the way through is a lot to ask of an audience when you're not giving that much away about her. Why is she the way she is? I'm not, like I said, I'm not looking for a whole backstory or anything like that. But particularly in the last act, where I thought it simultaneously had some of the best moments, but also some of the most, like you say, unbelievable aspects. That's when I really felt the film needed a little more context for her character. Why is she able to
just
all of a sudden do all this shit?
A second with crypto, it just was some of it was just a bit
I will say, I think, like I said, I feel like this film has a lot of makings of a modern thriller masterpiece, but it doesn't quite have all the pieces of the puzzle there for me. I think it does, if I'm being honest, it did have some of the most bone-chilling moments
That's true.
I have seen. There's a scene where in the courtroom, which I won't spoil, of this image that I have in my mind now that I won't forget. And I think a lot of it is just terrific filmmaking, and the script is really, really fantastic at times. And the lead actress, I can't remember her name, she's brilliant. She's good. So good.
Yeah. I was just going to say as well, that scene you mentioned, one great thing about it is this sort of horrific drama, but it's bone chilling in a scene you won't forget, but it's not like they're now we're going to witness us actually committing the crime.
Yeah.
It's bone chilling just through your sort of insinuation and what it means.
Yes.
The sort of things that the characters are doing, not in necessarily the most graphic or violent sense, but just what they allude to. And that was all so clever, and it was very well written. I
Yeah,
agree with that.
it's brilliant. It doesn't spoon feed you. It leaves just enough for you to meet them halfway, kind of thing. It's brilliant. Yeah,
that is really good. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and then on the same day, we also followed that up by watching Clue, the 1985 film. I watched that for the first time. Do you remember?
That was so much fun.
Yeah, another sort of
that film.
Yeah, another sort of murder mystery, but in a very kind of different tone. You really enjoyed that film.
I loved that film.
I enjoyed it as well.
That's the kind of film that, like, I know objectively isn't great cinema, but I
think it is great cinema. What are you talking about?
Okay, sorry. It's not The Godfather, but it's like, it's just so much fun and hilarious. Like, it's the kind of humor that I love so much. Yeah, I had so much fun with that film.
Yeah, it's a good, and obviously, like, you know, a lot of films like Knives Out owe a lot to films like Clue. You know, I think everyone in that film is fantastic in the way they're all able to play off each other, like almost as if it's this kind of dance, this comedic dance that is like sort of right the way through the film. And of course, Tim Curry, who is just fabulous.
Oh,
he's
my
incredible.
God, yes.
Yeah, I miss seeing him in films. And yeah, he's so terrific. And of course, the film has a kind of multiple endings kind of aspect to it, which was really, really fun.
That's so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no, I enjoyed that film so much.
Yeah, it's a really fun film. And if you haven't seen it and you like Knives Out, definitely check it out. So up next was Zodiac, David Fincher's Zodiac. So Cineworld here in London did the start of a kind of new season of theirs called Fincher Season, where they showed 4 of his films. I'm not sure why they didn't do all of his films, but 4 of his films, and the first of which was Zodiac. So myself, you, and Isaac, we all went to the Cineworld. We watched Zodiac, which is a close to 3-hour murder mystery. A lot of murder mysteries in January.
Oh,
a film that me and Isaac had seen before. I loved, Isaac loved. You had never seen Zodiac before. So why don't you tell everyone what you thought of David Fincher's Zodiac?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Like all of Fincher's films, you know, gripping, precise. Yeah, like just really, really, really good. I thought one thing that was sort of brilliant about it is it's so gripping and so intense, and yet left not, how do I say? Like, it is resolved, but there's not, like with a lot of these sort of murder mystery things, there's a big climax, or you're like in fear and horror and all of these things. And he manages to do that, but without huge confrontation, or without, like, you know, it's not Seven. It's all sort of, it's based on a true story, and it's all sort of under the radar, all comment, all, oh my God, he's got that watch. What does that mean? Kind of a thing. And you're there like, oh my God, it's that watch. What's going to happen? But, you know, no one's getting...
It's interesting you say that.
Because, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you say that, because it's like that design of that film is very much emulating the 3 leads that we follow, Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Ruffalo, Robert Downey Jr., as they, you know, work day and night to try and solve this case, to catch this killer, essentially. And it's like loads of these moments where you almost have them, the resolution is not there yet, it's almost there, it's the piece is there, and you know, it always manages to slip through your fingers, even at the very end. It's, you know, exactly. It's a chilling ending, and also a film that also has one of the most bone-chilling scenes I've ever seen, which is the scene where Jake Gyllenhaal goes down into the basement.
Oh yeah, that was scary.
And you're like, oh my, like it's
that was really good.
If you haven't seen Zodiac, it is one of David Fincher's most underappreciated or underrated. I think when I say underappreciated, I have actually heard more people talking about it in recent years, but I would say, you know, films like Seven and Gone Girl and Fight Club and, you know, even The Social Network do really stand out as the ones that, the Fincher ones. But Zodiac is such a, I think it's, if you said this film was a masterpiece, I would say sure. Like, I think it's a fantastic film. It's a 3-hour film that flies like an eagle. It's so gripping, meticulous as always. David Fincher is. Don't sleep on it. It's wonderful. And I want to say, like, seeing Zodiac again just makes me think how much a film like The Batman, Matt Reeves' The Batman, owes to, you know, a filmmaker like David Fincher with films like Seven and Zodiac. That whole murder mystery kind of element to it, you know, with something like Seven, which I'll talk about in a sec, is just the aesthetic of that film, how it's constantly raining, and just the grunginess of that film, very much, the Batman takes a lot of inspiration from. And, Paul Dano's The Riddler is essentially the Zodiac killer, except for he's in Gotham City and he's up against the Batman. So, it is films like this that, we overlook when we see a film like The Batman and stuff like that. So I think it's a great one to return to if you've only seen it once or so, like me, and one that everybody should watch if you love the crime, sort of murder mystery, true crime, I guess, genre, so to speak.
100%.
So, that was Zodiac. Up next... Okay, so we went to the cinema on the weekend and we did a back-to-back. The first film we watched was Babygirl.
Oh, yeah.
Babygirl.
Babygirl was interesting.
Yeah.
I wasn't super blown away by Babygirl. I felt like it was too long. I felt like the characters were underdeveloped. I felt like it was a little bit sort of, for want of a better word, cringe at moments. It's playing with some interesting things. It was sort of a pleasant surprise that it wasn't just sort of a 50 Shades kind of a thing, and they were trying to do something else with it.
Definitely.
And Nicole Kidman was great in it. But yeah, I think it fell short for me, really, Babygirl.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think the film is really interesting. I would definitely... it's not a film that I would pass off as a 50 Shades kind of film, because it's not. It's not as sexy or sensual as it's marketed. It's definitely more of a psychological thriller about sex. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah.
And Nicole Kidman is fantastic and Harris Dickinson is fantastic. But yeah, there are some moments that do borderline go on cringe, which we laughed our asses off in the cinema. There's one shot of Harris Dickinson, and it's not the scene where he's dancing with a whiskey glass in his hand. It's the moment where Nicole Kidman first drinks the glass of milk in the restaurant, and he's just like... That was brilliant. But I think it's a really, really interesting film about like sort of containing and suppressing your sexual desires, I guess, and what's morally right, and but yeah, I don't think it quite left the impact on me that I think it was.
I felt like it did have potential.
Yeah.
Quite like.
Yeah, I don't think it reached his potential, basically. Yeah, for sure. And then we went to have dinner at a Thai restaurant. 20 minutes later, came back and we watched Jesse Eisenberg's A Real Pain. Yeah. Another film that, we were waiting a while to check out, and we finally checked it out, which we both really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, I loved that film. I feel like, so I've done like a few of these kind of... for want of a better word, Holocaust tours, like where you go and sort of see, different things, different countries, follow your family's past kind of a thing. And I was really pleasantly surprised to see that this just wasn't sort of a big film about the Holocaust, that it was really rooted in this hilarious, tragic, loving relationship between these two cousins and what it meant to have that relationship sort of with this backdrop and what their legacy meant for them as much as what their relationship was about. And I thought it was already like, I really loved it. I thought it was really, really great, very heartfelt, very funny. And I did appreciate the kind of ridiculousness of some of the things on the, like Holocaust tour, like the sort of the super worthy woman and the, the tour guide who was like super into the history. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I also think like, obviously a lot of people are talking about Kieran Culkin here. And I think this is the first thing I've seen him in. I haven't seen, give me a sec. I haven't seen Succession. Sorry, I don't know why it took so long to say that. Haven't seen Succession, but here he is just brilliant. He's so fantastic. So a lot of people have said he's just playing Kieran Culkin.
So
didn't affect me because, like I said, I haven't seen him before, but I thought he was so terrific, good. And so was Jesse Eisenberg, and for someone who hasn't got a lot of experience as a director, I thought this was really, really strong, and the writing was great.
Oh yeah.
Also, only Jesse Eisenberg would obviously write like a 2-minute long scene about his feet. It's just hilarious. I also feel like we all know someone like Kieran Culkin's Benji in this film. Like we all have someone like that in our lives, which made it extra relatable and hilarious, I think. And there's a scene where Jesse Eisenberg is like, Kieran Culkin's kind of left the table and the camera slowly sort of pans in on him and he's essentially kind of ranting, but also just pouring his heart out about his cousin, about how he both loves him and hates him. And it's just like, really, really great illustration of how complex that kind of family relationship can be. So someone who you should really hate, but can't hate fully. Does that make sense?
Someone that you both should really hate and should really love.
Yeah.
Like it's that sort of, I think too often in films it's so clear cut.
Yeah.
Whereas this guy, and everyone has this member of their family or this friend who simultaneously is someone that you want to be there for 24/7 and you love so much, and is just a little bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
And you're like, actually, I just hate you sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's just, it does it brilliantly and non-judgmentally.
It walks that line really, really well.
Hilariously. And I just thought it was really good.
Do you think A Real Pain was snubbed for a Best Picture nomination?
I mean,
Considering
yes.
some of
the nominees, yes.
But let's say it was in a better year. Do you think it's like Best Picture worthy?
I think it is very dependent on the year, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
would it have been in your top 10 films of last year?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. Cool. So moving on, we go from A Real Pain to another pain, that being David Fincher's Seven. I'm just going to issue another spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen Seven, this is like one of the biggest films I can spoil. So please don't listen if you haven't seen the film. Seven, we went to see it as part of the Fincher season at Cineworld. We went to see it at the Leicester Square IMAX, which was a beautiful, just all-encompassing kind of digital print, but a huge print of it nonetheless. And again, 2 hours of just being trapped in this dark and grungy kind of world with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Following this, who tried to catch this Zodiac killer, of course, played by Kevin Spacey, who is brilliant. It's just a shame who
he's playing himself. No,
it's a shame about him as an actor, but because he is such a great actor, and every time, I think I said this to you after the film, but the magic of Seven for me, aside from all the great facets it has, it's directing, the story, how gripping the story is and whatnot, is, of course, everybody talks about the ending of that film, and the ending is one of the great endings of the past 20, 30 years of cinema. I would say how there are very few films that leave you, leaving the theater as depressed as Seven. And the brilliance of that film for me is every time I watch it, somehow, whenever I look into Brad Pitt's eyes, as there's the close-up on his face, as he's pointing the gun at Kevin Spacey, I am convinced that for a split second, he might not pull that trigger. He might not do it. My longing to see kind of, good prevail just takes over, just because, how we've all become so accustomed to seeing the good guy win, that in that second, David Fincher knows that, and he plays with that, and it's just like, you think he might not do it. No matter how many times, no matter how many times you've seen the film and you know how it ends, the film betrays you again. And I just think, it's so brilliant, that you're able to rewatch a film like that, know the ending, and still feel so much. Is a testament to how truly just great Seven is, and it is one of Fincher's best. And I think it is, one of the great thriller films I have ever seen. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said.
I agree. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's not much to say about Seven that hasn't already been said.
Watching it for a second time, did you get because you had seen it before?
Yeah,
right?
I had seen it before. I think I had sounds so annoying to say, I had a wider appreciation for the filmmaking. The first time I saw it, it was more of a scenario of this is this is such a mindfuck film, let's watch this.
Yeah.
Kind of scenario. And we watched it and we were like, oh, that was sick. And then continued. Whereas I feel like sometimes it's interesting to go in with more of a wider appreciation of it. But I mean, it was brilliant.
Yep. Well, next up, I went to see Better Man. You haven't seen this film.
No, I haven't seen this film.
But I went with some work friends after work. We finished work and we had to the cinema to check out Better Man, which is a biopic essentially about Robbie Williams. The caveat here is, of course, he is a CGI monkey. That's essentially the kind of premise. And I do think ultimately the CGI monkey thing, it is a bit of a gimmick to kind of distract you from the fact that this biopic is sort of dealing with the same themes and telling the same kind of story as the countless musical biopics we've all seen before. You know, stardom, fame, glory, sex, drugs, girls, whatever it might be. It is very, very similar in those kind of themes: love and heartbreak, and eventually redemption. But for me, Better Man, the more I thought about it after the film, when I walked out the cinema, I wasn't too sure about it, but the more I thought about it as a film, the more I liked it, because the film definitely has a vision for itself, and it goes all for it. Like, there are moments where, you know, you just have these kind of the most kind of subtle scenes between two characters talking in a room, and then it will just descend into this kind of surreal, dreamlike sequence, and I feel like the film really balances those two kind of visual aspects really, really well. I think the performances are great. Like, the music is, of course, great. If you know Robbie Williams, you know, all of his hits are in this film, and so you'll definitely enjoy it from a musical standpoint. But I know that a lot of people aren't familiar with Robbie Williams. You know, anyone outside of the UK I've seen online don't really know who he is, which could mean that you don't enjoy this film as much, or it could actually mean you have a really good time with it. I think it's definitely worth watching if you kind of like the musical biopic genre. It has a lot of balls. It has some really thrilling sequences, some musical sequences. There is one sequence where they shut down Regent Street in London and hired like 500 extras to shoot this incredible dance music sequence, which is one of the best I've seen in a musical, maybe ever. And I was singing and humming along because, of course, I know the songs that I'm familiar with. Take That and Robbie Williams. But I think it's an interesting watch, and I think you shouldn't be put off by the CGI kind of monkey aspect to it. That's what makes the film. It wouldn't work without that kind of aspect. And I kind of really like it. I don't know. It's not amazing. I don't think it's amazing, but I do really like it, having thought about it.
And I haven't seen it, but I do kind of appreciate that they're trying to do something a bit different, that they're not just like, oh, let's just bring out another one kind of a thing. Like, he was really thinking about, how can I, well, maybe he wasn't, someone else was, I don't know. But they were really thinking about, you know, how can we use film to really portray the story and use every aspect of filmmaking, not just cut and dry. Let's do something again, which I appreciate. I haven't seen it, but I appreciate the idea. Yeah,
it's definitely an interesting film. Yeah, for sure. On the 18th, me and Clara, it just hit 2 years in our relationship. So we went out, had a nice day out. We had some great food out in London. We came back, and of course, we were deliberating what films to watch, but Clara had never seen Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill. So we sat down for 4 hours, Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2, had some drinks, sat down and watched that epic. And I'm going to just let you take it away and give your thoughts, because this was the first time you'd seen those films.
No, I mean, I thought it was brilliant. I had so much fun with the films. Really gripping. The fight sequences are amazing, especially in the first one, sort of when she comes into the, what's it called, with the like 80,
the crazy 88 fight.
The crazy 88 fight, thank you, was insane. But 100% my favorite character in the first one was Lucy Liu.
Lucy Liu's character is amazing. Oren Ishii
is insane, and I loved the animated sequence.
Of course.
I thought that was brilliant. I'd never seen anything quite like it. The way they did the blood, the way they did the eyes of the characters, the fear, the sort of darkness. I just thought that was really amazing. And I think something like that, like obviously Tarantino's famous for all his violence and all of that kind of stuff.
But because it's so much fun, Jan, get it.
But I think that is something that will stay with me. And I just finished recently watching the series Blue Eye Samurai, which takes sort of, I think, some inspiration from Kill Bill, and just it was interesting to watch how they did the blood in the animation in this, and to sort of see, not exactly translate, they do it differently in Blue Eye Samurai, but see some of that come through, because I'd never quite seen people use blood quite as.
Are you talking about like
the spray and like the splats and stuff? Like it was something that I hadn't, because obviously animation is usually a genre for children, and when you see blood in it, it's very sort of, you know, realistic or not really there. So it's interesting sort of seeing it used as imagery. You know, the beautiful thing about animation is enhancing the sort of real life and the real world for whatever effect you want. And it was interesting to see the way they'd done that to sort of enhance the sort of violence and the fear and all that aspect, like just pushing that further. And again, something that sort of...
it's very like maximalist in visuals, and
I loved that. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah.
That style of blood that has been prominent throughout like Japanese samurai films before in the past. It's just like Tarantino's taken.
No, but like the animation.
Oh yeah.
The like, I mean, again, like don't watch loads of anime, but like I just think that was something, just in the animation aspect, the way they did the blood splatter, something that just isn't like realistic or couldn't even be done with live action. Like it's just not really possible. That they sort of used that in that way, I thought was really cool. No,
definitely. And I think the way to watch Kill Bill is definitely do both as a full kind of film. Yeah. Part one is definitely for me, like, it's one of my favorite Tarantino films. I do think it is ultimately the better part. You would disagree though. We had this.
Well, again, this is my issue with revenge things, that in the first one I didn't care about her revenge at all. So I was enjoying the fights and I liked Lucy Liu's character, and I kind of, part of me was like wishing for Lucy Liu's character to kill
Beatrice.
Yeah. Sorry, dyslexia. To kill Beatrice. And so I felt like I was super in it. I was enjoying it. I loved the style, everything. But it's that classic thing of like, I was just like, oh yeah, like
you needed the motivation.
I need the motivation to care, kind of thing.
Sure.
And so the second half did give that to me. I feel like rewatching them with that knowledge, I do understand why you prefer the first one. Like I said, I love the animation sequence, and that's definitely what stayed with me. So
yeah. I mean, the Crazy 88 fight is like one of the most visually. It's one of Tarantino's best visual sequences that he's ever done. I think
black and white.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant from the silhouette shots and just it's incredible that fight. Yeah. Up next, I went to see with Anya and Isaac. You couldn't make it. I went to see A Complete Unknown, which is the new biopic about Bob Dylan starring Timothée Chalamet. I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it for what it was, for sure. I don't think it is quite as kind of deep or complex or... Yeah, I don't think it is necessarily doing much that's different in the musical biopic genre. I know a lot of Bob Dylan fans want to go there for, to see kind of the more political aspects of his, who he was as a person, or who he is as a person, sorry. The film doesn't really follow the politics that much. It does have moments where he's it shows America during the Cuban Missile Crisis and things like that. But I think the film works. It's a good film. It's a fun film. Timmy's great in it. I think he's fantastic. So is Edward Norton and Monica Barbara and Elle Fanning. Like they're all really, really great. Timmy nails. The
singing.
Bob Dylan, singing. Like it's really, really great. But my problem with the film was I felt like it really lacked a narrative until the kind of last sort of 30 or so minutes, I would say. That's when stuff actually starts to happen. Questions start to be asked about, Bob Dylan and his kind of attitude towards folk music. Who is folk music for? Who does he want to be? As an artist and moving forward. And they had this whole kind of question about the acoustic versus the electric, and all those ideas come into play. But by then, I think it's just a bit too late in the film, and then it does hit you with like the classic at the end of the biopic title cards of saying Bob Dylan went on to make da 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 da. So I think it's one of the better biopics, I would say. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I think for the most part it does do a good job of getting you invested in the character and his relationships. But yeah, like I said, it isn't really about much until the last sort of 30 minutes. That's what I would say.
Do you feel like it's for like uber Bob Dylan fans, people that like love him and just want to see his life, as opposed to like...
Well, I don't know. I mean, because the film follows him during, I want to say like don't know the exact years, but only a kind of I want to say 5 or 6 years. So it's not his entire life. And I don't think you could cover that. It's not like an Oppenheimer, right? So do I think, would I recommend it to Bob Dylan fans? I think prepare yourself to be disappointed if you are, a huge diehard Bob Dylan fan of him as a person, as a character. Music, of course, they do a great job of the music for sure. But if you are really looking to get a sort of insight into who this guy is truly politically and emotionally, don't know if you're quite going to get that here. But I thought it was fun.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah. Up next, what did we see? Oh, I went to see Flight Risk. Flight Risk at the multimedia screening. Flight Risk, directed by Mel Gibson, starring Mark Wahlberg, Michelle Dockery, and Topher Grace. I'm just going to say this straight here. It is January. It's probably going to be one of the worst films I've seen this year. I went to see this at multimedia screening, with Eli and Adam as well. Adam reviews films. We were sitting next to each other and genuinely got to a point where we were like face palming in sync. Basically, it was hilarious, like hilariously bad, which I kind of was relieved by, because you don't want to go into a bad film and it just be bad and you get no enjoyment out of it. Like we were laughing at the film. It was just genuinely bizarre and just really, really bad. Really bad.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Because I know it's spoilers.
Yeah.
But how did they get out of the helicopter?
The plane.
Oh, it was a plane. I thought it was a helicopter.
No, it's a plane. How do they get out of the helicopter?
Yeah. Does it crash?
Yeah, well, they have to land it eventually.
Oh, okay, fair.
So,
sorry. That was the only thing that was pressing me from the trailer.
Yeah. If eventually a plane's going to run out of fuel, no?
Yeah, but I was wondering if they crashed and died at the end.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, it's not. It's within the first like minute of the film, you know it's going to be shit, because there's this like CGI shot of a moose. It's so bad. Topher Grace opens a curtain and a moose is like in front of him, and it just looks like a Disney Channel, like from like the 90s. Like it's just so bad. It's so bad. And you're like, oh my goodness. And yeah, the fall of Mel Gibson as a director needs to be studied, because how the hell did he go from making like films like Braveheart, Apocalypto and Hacksaw Ridge to making this pile of shit? Honestly, it's and Mark Wahlberg is hilarious in this film, like Boldberg. That's what we call him. But like he's just nuts. He's just It's so bad. It's so bad.
Did Mel Gibson always write his films?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. He just picked bad scripts, like no.
Why are you saying bad scripts?
Because you said this film was bad.
Yeah, but the others weren't bad.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Do you think he's just started picking bad scripts?
I was going to say like No, I have no idea. I really no clue what happened here. But of course, Mel Gibson's been a very controversial character for a great many years now. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Up next, we went to see Presence, directed by Steven Soderbergh. Interesting film, interesting premise.
Yeah, interesting premise. Presence. Yeah. It was an interesting premise. I thought could have been great. It
again didn't really fully. I think the premise or the kind of gimmick with the cameras and seeing those events unfold from a paranormal entity's perspective was wasted on a kind of weak script, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. It was things like lazy sort of things that I felt that, you know, we can spoil it here. Like the only other character other than the family introduced was the major plot point and the reason why the two people that we never met died, and the reason that like it just didn't work. It felt all too set up. It felt like a sort of badly written play or something. Like, and even with the development of the individuals, there was none.
Yeah.
Like the main characters who was meant to develop, who was meant to go from some sort of like toxic asshole teenage boy into like, you know, show himself to be a good man kind of a thing. But that wasn't really felt.
Did you think he was a main character though?
No, he wasn't. But I'm just saying he was the character that was
should have changed.
To the story that he developed. Like none of the other characters developed, but it was crucial to the story that he developed, and even that we didn't see or didn't really get. Like where was the good person underneath ever? I felt he was literally an arsehole the whole way through. Like
but I don't know. I kind of disagree with that, because I think like for me that character, I didn't necessarily think that he had to have like a development.
Yeah, but like for example with when we were just speaking about a real pain, I'm not saying it should be this accentuated. Yeah. But you know, the sort of the cousin is an arsehole and a nice guy, and I think most people are. Whereas if you just have a character that is an unbelievable arsehole to everyone, and yet sort of, you know, his dad can go, oh, I know there's a good man in you somewhere, but genuinely is just a dick. Like, people aren't really like that. I don't believe that.
But do you think he's genuinely just like a dick? I don't think...
No, I don't think he is.
Oh, yeah.
As a character. But we didn't see anything of him being vaguely decent. Like...
I did.
Oh, go on.
I did. I thought it's like a classic kind of jock older brother type figure. But he does have, like... I'll be honest, he wasn't given that much screen time. But there were moments where, you know, he had with his mum... Him and his mum had a very close relationship. And that definitely said more about the way the mum viewed the kids than anything. Like,
yeah, but like, his close relationship with his mum is like him telling her how he like bullied someone, not like...
No, but like my point is he is still quite family oriented, and like I do feel like he genuinely has like a close connection with... I don't think he's all bad. Like, I think like he wasn't portrayed to be all bad. I thought it was quite like I've seen that kind of person before, and I feel like at the end I don't think he needed to necessarily go on some development arc. I think it's just that moment.
No, I'm not saying that arc. I just meant I felt like, because I disagree. I feel like I didn't see any niceness in him.
You thought he was just a dick the entire time?
Yeah, like his mum doted after someone who was horrible to every other member of the family and his friends and just like not a good person. And I didn't see anything in any of his actions or in any of the script which told me otherwise.
I don't know.
So I felt like when he did the like final act of like savior and he's now a good person, I was like, oh, okay. But like I was never rooting for, as the father said, that good man inside him.
Oh no, I was never rooting for that either. But I don't think that was the thing with the. I don't think that was the main focus of the film at all.
Okay. I feel like we've maybe gone on a bit of a tangent. My point was more that the characters weren't nuanced, that they were super one-dimensional.
Yeah, sure. They were very like the mum is the mum who loves her eldest son and like wants, he's the golden child kind of thing, and the dad is actually quite empathetic, and he's the character who is usually more like the motherly figure. Like, he's the one who wants to talk about feelings and whatnot, etc. I'm not obviously, but so yeah, there were different tropes and they were played around with more. But like with that scene where he comes back in towards the end, when he comes back in the bedroom, that is the very like primal kind of
sure.
sibling.
I'm not saying he should have gone like, oh, this. I just felt like what they'd written was like the stage 1 of the development of his character. It was arsehole teenage boy, and that was his character. And then like there wasn't like, do you get what I'm saying? That like it was.
No, I don't, because this is the but why? So you're basically saying you think the character was underwritten.
I thought all the characters were underwritten. He was just my example of someone that I felt like it would have been good to see more from him. But maybe you could pick anyone. That I felt like each of the characters in that was very like, we've given a stereotype, we've written for the stereotype, and we're not giving you anything else. That's what I felt about this film.
Interesting. I actually thought that they weren't incredibly fleshed out, but I think what made me kind of appreciate those characters was not necessarily their individual stories, but just how they reacted to each other. Like, you spent so much time with the family, and not necessarily, you obviously have the moments where you go off with like the sister and just have her there, but like it's the moments where the family interacts, when they all like, they all acknowledge the fact that there is a presence quite early on in the film, which is never the case in films like this, and seeing how they react to it as a family. I thought seeing their dynamics showed a lot about who they were as people. So
I thought I did think their interactions were well written. I just felt like it needed to go somewhere or show me more in a lot of cases, and I just felt like I said that they were just very empty characters.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is like just under an hour and a half as well. Like, so it is. I agree with you. I think there could have been a little bit more there, but I think the film for me, what I thought was going to be a sort of slow burn, kind of meditative kind of look on life and and whatnot, then just descended into like the most kind of melodramatic bullshit plot.
Yeah,
like that didn't need to happen. It didn't need to happen at all. But the film was like, shit. Oh wait, we're a film. Let's just write this shit. Like, it was just.
That didn't really make sense. That the only other character they brought in, just didn't.
Yeah. It's written by David Koepp as well, who wrote Jurassic Park. So
that's why you're upset. Sorry.
but yeah, whatever. I mean,
we love Jurassic Park.
It is what it is. Anyways, up next, myself, you, and Isaac went to see The Brutalist. Okay.
Yes.
This is a beast of a film. If you haven't heard, it is a 3.5 hour post-World War II drama epic, American epic, that has a 15-minute intermission, which
can I just
was kind of nice.
Love the intermission. For long films, please, can we bring that back? I really like that.
Do you think Oppenheimer needed an intermission then?
I don't think it would have ruined it after the bomb. I think that might have been quite a nice, that was the first bit, this is the second bit, and it might have kept that momentum a little bit better. I really don't. I really, really like an intermission. I think, I don't know, and I think it's good for cinemas. Talk about keeping cinemas alive. I think it's good for cinemas. I think that, and I think, obviously I wouldn't say it for big blockbusters like the sort of really long Marvel films. I don't think it needs an intermission. I just think, and it's not even that my attention span isn't there, because I was so in The Brutalist, it didn't feel like an hour and a half had passed. I just do think it's nice. It breaks it up. You can go, oh my God, what did you think? What do you think is going to happen? I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I love long films. We all know this, but I am down for the intermission if the film is designed so that the intermission doesn't break momentum. You know, it leaves it on a plot point where, you know, say that there's some level of finality there, but there's questions that you can kind of gather in your mind going into the second.
It has to work. You can't just be like, we're gonna whack one.
Exactly. I think it needs the filmmakers really need to think about when the right time is to put that intermission if you're gonna do one. But yeah, it was kind of weird, and it was really nice to have that intermission. But The Brutalist, all in all, I mean, what a film! What a film! Obviously, there's been a lot of talk recently. There's been a lot of controversy recently about The Brutalist, which we'll get into very, very quickly. But overall, I thought this was great. I thought it was a fantastic film. One of the best. If I had seen this last year, it would have been in probably my top 3, maybe. It's written and directed by Brady Corbet, who's a filmmaker that I have never seen. You know, I've never seen his work before. He did another film called, I think it's Vox Love or something, with Natalie Portman. But now he comes to direct, like we said, 3.5 hour post World War II American epic, essentially, that feels very biopic-y, but it is not actually about a real person. It takes inspiration from a lot of different artists of that post-war era, but this is a work of fiction. Gosh, where to start with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was brilliant. I can't lie, if it hadn't been for the ending, could have been joint with June for me as
really
top one. Yeah, like I really loved it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
I thought, yeah, and we'll get into this as well later. But like, I thought the acting was brilliant. And the way it was shot, I think, was so interesting. That when you're considering something like brutalism and something that's all about the use of space, and how you view space, I think the idea that you're going to make a film about that. Thinking about how to shoot that must have been such a difficult process, and I thought they did it so well. Like even I don't know, like if you've seen pictures of brutalist buildings, often you're like, that looks sort of horrific. Yeah. But you know, from the shots of the library to the end when they show the building that he made, it is stunning. Everything he created and the way they did that. And the way they shot everything else, like you could really feel the claustrophobia of some of the spaces he was in versus like even the first shot of him on the boat. Oh my God,
that was incredible.
In this like claustrophobic space. And then going out and feeling that sort of lift. And I thought there was a few instances in the film where he's sort of in dining rooms and sitting with people and you can really feel that like claustrophobia versus some scenes like, namely, the one I can really think of is like when he's in the mountains looking at the marble,
100%.
Or like with his wife and things like that. You can really feel like in moments of relief and the moments of tension, which Definitely. I think do so emulate that style of architecture and sort of what he was all about.
Interesting. I never thought about it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So I thought that in and of itself was just like was astounding.
Yeah.
I thought I loved the sort of, and I know this wasn't what the film was about, but I did like the sort of almost subversion of the American dream. That kind of,
it was about that. Yeah.
That like, I mean, but not everything the film was about. Like, I just thought I was so there, and being someone who's like quite a skeptic, I was so wanted it for him. Like I really like, I was so rooting for him. And although when it didn't work, sorry, I'm not making a lot of sense, but yeah, I was so rooting for him. I was so there for it. And when it didn't work, although I'm someone that doesn't necessarily buy into that, I was like devastated. And I found it like, because you're so used to watching films where you're following someone down on their luck and they'll prevail at the end because it's a movie. And I know he does prevail, but like, it was so interesting the way they did it. And even me, who I'm like, this is like the 1%. This never happens to anyone. I was still there like, no, I can't believe they didn't, like, he didn't get it. He didn't, like, it just, I just thought they did everything so brilliantly. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah,
it is a brilliant film. And just going back to, you talking about the way the film was shot. Didn't think of it like that in the idea that maybe there was a thought to kind of emulate the claustrophobia, but also the feeling of being in such an open space of brutalism, because fundamentally I don't think the film was actually about brutalism, right? Like, as in, like, it's not about the art itself. It wasn't about it, because for me, I was watching an artist and the character and the emotions he was feeling when his craft was, being compromised, but also liberated. Like it was the journey, it's the artist's journey that I was watching. I don't think it was like, for me, the film doesn't necessarily bother to tell you about brutalism. Like it's not, it doesn't educate you on that. So for me, I think that's why the film works, is because it is first and foremost this character drama. It's it's this intimate exploration of a flawed man.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting you talk about the subversion of the American dream, because that is of course a huge overarching theme of the Brutalist. Like you said, the opening credits, the shot of him kind of navigating his way from the bottom of this boat in this incredibly claustrophobic environment. It's very manic, very chaotic, and I thought, I was legit like, oh my god, he's in the camps, right? And then the doors open, and then you see the Statue of Liberty upside down, and yes, it's very on the nose. It's it's the idea of the American dream being turned upside down. Yeah, of course it's very on the nose, but it works because...
It so works.
Yeah.
But even when it started, sorry to cut you off. Even when it started and I saw that, I thought it was I was almost like internally going, oh, okay, yeah, America, yay. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't even go like, oh, it's upside down, so it's a subversion. I wasn't thinking that. I was like, oh, it's artsy, so it's upside down. He's looking at it upside down. Like, I thought
because the shot is so good. Like, because you're already there in the story.
Yeah,
like,
I was already in the story. I was already like, he's at America.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah, I think the film, like, to me, people at work were asking me like what the film is and like what it's about and kind of thing. And the first thing I kind of said to them was like, one of the first things you want to say to people who've never heard about the film is to try and like compare it to other films. Like, oh, it's like this film. It's like this film. So if I was describing this film to someone who had never even heard of the Brutalist, I would say it's a lot like There Will Be Blood, with The Pianist as well, a little bit in there. It's not just because of Adrian Brody as well. A little bit, a splice of Oppenheimer in there, like thrown in there as well, I would even say. Also The Master as well. So it's very like Paul Thomas Anderson kind of similar feeling, but despite all that, it manages to be like something I've never seen before.
No.
It was an incredible experience watching that film. It has some of the coolest opening title card sequences I've ever seen. Very, very cool. And like these really intense moments of like driving as well.
Oh, yeah.
Reminded me a little bit of the stuff in Phantom Thread with Reynolds Woodcock, Daniel Day-Lewis's character driving in the middle of the night. It was really weird. But, this film is all centered by an incredible performance by Adrian Brody, who is just insanely good, and so is everyone. I mean, Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones, and they're all so they anchor the film so well.
One thing I really loved about this film so much is the partnership between him and his wife.
Yes.
And the story is about the subversion of American dream, but it's also about a marriage, I think.
Yeah, definitely in the second part.
Really deeply sort of threaded throughout that.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they both had their troubles. He maybe had done some questionable things, but like it was, in like really they were still there for each other, and they really saw each other, I felt.
Yeah.
Both of them, and they just needed to refine that sort of level and that connection and that both, the partnership of what they both wanted.
Yeah.
And I thought the way they sort of came to that was really lovely, and that they sort of never really gave up on each other. And I don't know, I thought their, and the way they saw each other, and even just sort of her.
I think she was a very powerful and like fierce character.
Yeah.
I think in the moments where he was going to lose it, she's the one who like picked him up.
But it was also interesting that they never gave up on themselves in their relationships.
Yeah.
Like there's, he sort of comes here and he's very much embedded in his work and he talks about her, but it's like, there's a moment where she's sitting around the dinner table, she's like, well, you didn't tell them about me, kind of a thing. And there's a moment towards the end where she's like, no, now I've had enough here. I'm going to Israel. Like, I can't do this. I'm demeaning myself here. Like, this is ridiculous. And she was going to like leave him and go to Israel. And there are those moments where it does become, they know that they do need to like look after themselves, but at the same time, I don't know, I just thought that balance that they did so well was sort of so realistic that you could see that they loved each other and that they cared about each other. She cared so much about his work and wanted it to happen at every stage, and was sort of, but also wanted to take care of his well-being, and that battle inside her as well as going on inside him. But at the same time, I just thought each level of their relationship was done so well that when they finally came together at the end, it wasn't empty. That like when they finally saw each other and were agreed, it felt like such a like equality of love and achievement and like just so there. Whereas I felt like it's like often when you see that in films, you do still feel like the characters have deeply compromised, or one of them, and and you're like, okay, yeah, but sure, but like in 10 years, what's going to happen? Like, whereas in this, you really felt there that was their love that had sort of come back and rekindled.
Yeah.
And that I thought was so beautiful, and the way they did that so honestly was I thought that was amazing. I loved that.
Yeah, no, I think they did a really great job with that relationship, and definitely like the film after the intermission definitely becomes more of their relationship centric kind of thing. For me, I feel like the arc or the storyline or relationship that I was most interested by was the kind of interplay between Adrian Brody's Laszlo Toth and Guy Pearce's character.
Oh my god, yeah.
That I feel like was like, yes, this is where the film is really because like it's not played conventionally where you have this asshole industrialist who is constantly shitting on the artist, the creator. They do respect each, or at least Guy Pearce has a lot of respect and admiration for Adrian Brody's character, Laszlo Toth, and deep down I think he knows that it's not just a simple case of like he needs him. I think he genuinely has a deep admiration for him. Obviously, that admiration goes a little too far in the second half of the film when they're
I don't know if I'd call it admirate. Like, I think he knows that Adrian Brody's character has something he wants.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I definitely think there is some rooted disdain.
Oh, 100%. But I do think it goes more than just you work for me.
Yeah.
I do think there is a level, because
I feel like he wants that full power that comes with that relationship he has with him.
Yeah.
That it can't just be like, you work for me, here's your paycheck.
Oh yeah,
he has to like own him emotionally as well as...
Yes, and he never quite manages to do that, which is why, you know, that scene happens, and it's horrible. And even like just being in his, you know, in his house with his family, with his son, and you know, that is just, you know, those things are an extension of him. So whenever, you know, the film constantly has you, you know, being with this character Laszlo Toth as he's in this environment the entire time, and you know, it just makes for an incredibly compelling narrative on, you know, well, the American dream and the artist's struggle ultimately. So I thought that was fantastic. And yeah, of course, a lot of controversy has recently come out about The Brutalist, and you know, questions were raised about whether or not the film is going to ultimately qualify for nominations at the this year's Oscars, but it has. And of course, we're talking about the whole use of AI. All right. So it recently came out that the editor of the film, I believe, used AI technology. Can't remember the name of the program, but he used AI technology to somewhat he fed his voice into this to essentially enhance certain Hungarian accents with Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones. My question to you is, firstly, how do you feel about this? Secondly, do you think Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones should be nominated in that in that case?
I think in this specific case,
do
I think that it deeply affected the performance or the film we watch, and it was like a little tweak to be like, oh, I can do this and it might make it a little tiny bit better. And is it an impeachment on creativity? No. However, I do believe AI generally does pose a real threat to filmmaking and does pose a real threat to artists and in a lot of other industry as well, but we're not talking about that now. And I do think it is the duty of something like the Academy, who, as much as it will pretend it's not, is a deeply political
100%.
Yeah.
All politics now, yeah.
No, exactly. As much as it wants to pretend it's not, it is deeply political, the decisions they make. And I think it is important for them to take a stand against stuff like that, just so we don't see it feed through and impeach the creativity of other artists in the future. I do think it's sad for Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones. I think they definitely deserve, because again, like, it didn't really affect their performance. I think they definitely deserve awards for fantastic performances. But if I was making those decisions, I wouldn't have nominated them, because I just think that the future of the industry and the future of filmmaking and the future of that artistic integrity is sort of more important. And I think there's been so many more like bullshit decisions that the Academy's made that aren't for that particularly good reason. So I'm a bit like, well, yeah.
Do you think it's interesting then that the film The Brutalist is, for all intents and purposes, about artistic integrity, yet
post-production? Yeah, but again, like I do think this, like, and I've worked with artists before that sort of used AI to enhance certain things and all of that kind of stuff, and it is fundamentally a tool. AI is a tool. I think, I just do think it's a slippery slope, and something like AI does pose threats to things like this, and we can see it already in sort of copy editing and things like that. AI is coming out, and those were people's jobs, and they did have the human touch. And I think people need to be really careful with what they let slide. And I think, again, something like this feels very small. He used a tool. It didn't cost someone their job. It wasn't like a huge thing. I just do think, okay, we say yes to that. What do we say yes next to?
Yeah, it's very, very true.
Do you feel similarly, or?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, I'm not going to argue with you on this one because this could turn into a 30-minute longer episode than it needs to be. But I think I do agree with you fundamentally.
You think they deserve that Oscar?
I think they definitely deserve to be nominated for sure, because performance goes way beyond just vocals, etc. It's about their bodies, about their facial. Anyway,
I do agree with like
the only thing is, it's like you never know how the filmmakers can say they only used it to enhance certain things, but like we will never know. You can never tell. You don't know how much. For all we don't know, for all Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones could be speaking with like English accents, and they could have just who knows? They didn't, but who knows? Like you say, it's a slippery slope, because of course AI can enhance and do so many amazing things with films. Like, of course, like visual effect artists and CGI and stuff like that. They are forms of AI. They make those kind of films possible. So where do you draw the line? Like where is that boundary? I think now moving forward, I think it is inevitable that AI is going to seep further and further into cinema, regardless of whether or not we like it or not. I think the important thing now is finding ways how we can mitigate that when it comes to things like recognition and awards. That's what I think. If we're talking specifically about the Oscars and whatnot, they need to develop certain ways in which, or criteria in which, films are eligible for these kind of awards. That's what I think.
And I guess fundamentally, I do care less about the awards and protecting people in their jobs.
Oh, definitely, 100%,
like
100%.
So it's more like a signal, of like what we should let happen and what we shouldn't. So like, I don't know, like I feel like you said, like the award itself, they do deserve it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, there you go, guys. That was our kind of mini review on The Brutalist. We have got a couple more films to quickly discuss before we round off the episode. The next film that I went to see, I saw this the other day with Panwa, was we went to, as part of the Fincher season, we went to rewatch The Social Network. Clara didn't want to come because for some reason you'd rather watch something as harrowing as Seven, but don't want to watch The Social Network.
I don't know. I think Mark Zuckerberg is more scary than a fake serial killer. Let's be real. So
I won't argue with you. But I just think I'm not going to do a full review about The Social Network, because I just think it is a perfect film. I just think everything about that film, I think, is one of the greatest screenplays ever written. It is the marriage between screenplay and direction and music and like it's just perfect harmony of film. It's incredible. The Social Network. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's the best David Fincher film, in my opinion. There you go. But the last...
Can I just say that I have seen it and I do think it's really good as a film.
Yeah.
I do like. Yeah.
But the last official film that I watched this week was WolfMan, directed by Leigh Whannell, which I was really disappointed by, actually. I really like Leigh Whannell. He was, of course, one of the directors of the original Saw films. And I really love The Invisible Man, and even more so Upgrade. I think he's a real talent behind the camera, the way he's able to mechanically move and twist and turn, and it's great. It really makes for some exciting sequences. And going into Wolfman, I was hoping and expecting to see that, having this kind of horror, creature feature kind of story here, and I was really hoping to see something interesting with this film, but it just didn't work for me. It really didn't work for me. I wasn't a fan. Obviously, originally, this film was supposed to have a different director, and it was supposed to star Ryan Gosling, but of course, the film went through changes, and Leigh Whannell ended up with it. The way I would describe this film, the reason why didn't really work for me, because I just felt like it felt like a short film that they had just stretched to an hour and 40. Like, I don't think that there was any real narrative there. I don't think there were many questions asked aside from like realistically, like, you know, a man becomes a wolf and, you know, gets mutated essentially, and, you know, when he's put into an environment where his instincts are telling him to kill his family and, you know, become this animal essentially, there's not really much more there. And I thought some of the acting wasn't too great either, and I didn't really fully buy some of it. So some of the acting was good and some of it wasn't so good, but for an hour and 40 minutes it just didn't really, it didn't work for me, unfortunately. I've seen a few people actually do kind of like the film, which I'm more happy for, but for me it just didn't work. So there you go. That was the last thing I watched in Wolfman. Last night was yesterday was February the 1st. So technically this film belongs in the February segment, but we just thought, since we watched it last night and we're shooting today, we might as well do a little review on it. So last night, the pair of us, me and Clara, we went to see Companion, which is this new kind of horror thriller, black comedy as well, I would even say,
100%.
Which stars Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid.
Yeah.
We saw it last night. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I feel like I had a lot of fun with this film. I did not know the twist because I hadn't seen the second trailer.
Yes.
And I didn't see it coming, and it was really good fun. It was. I found it really funny, laughed a lot. Sort of does descend a bit into melodrama at the end.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought, it was a good date night film. It
was a really good date night film,
yeah. And I thought the acting was really great. Yeah, I can't lie. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it was like a really sharp, clean sort of 90, 100 minutes, which was nice. I thought Sophie Thatcher was great. Jack Quaid, who I love in, of course, The Boys, is terrific here as well. I think everyone was great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a couple of laughs out of it. I thought it walked the line between like thriller and comedy quite well. I didn't love it as much as you because I did think in the third act it did descend into like this kind of almost cringe melodrama that didn't fully work for me, but all in all I think the premise was super interesting and super cool, and I left the cinema wanting it to explore that premise a bit more and go a little bit deeper, but you actually appreciated it for the opposite reasons. You appreciated it.
I feel like I agree with you that the ending sort of did become a bit nuts. It was a bit like, that just, you've set something up earlier that now you've sort of revoked, and you've given her this power which doesn't make any sense. How did that happen? Like, it just...
The film establishes rules and it braces them in the next scene. Like,
there were like definitely flaws in the storytelling in that sense. I guess I feel like I've seen a lot, I feel like I've seen quite a decent number of horror films that have a premise and they're trying to say something really deep, or even just thrillers like a Don't Worry Darling kind of thing. Like, set something up and they're just like, oh my God, this is just like trying to make this amazing point about life and society. And I was kind of, sort of sex robot girlfriend like doll kind of thing is...
What does it say about the objectification of
exactly.
women?
It could go into like, the robotification of society. I'm not sure if that's even a word. Or, the objectification of women, or like all of these things. And it could do something super deep with that. And I'm always there to watch something deep if it's good. But so often it's just so empty and so shallow and so shit. And it was just fun to go see a film that was just like, this is kind of a good premise. Let's have a good, let's make a sort of exciting, dramatic comedy and have a nice night and not have to delve into the waters too much. But I mean, like I said, I'm not against and it is an interesting premise, and again, could say a lot about society. You could do something like Ex Machina, for example, does an amazing job with that kind of stuff and is a brilliant film. I just did enjoy going to see a fun film. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's good. Pretty solid. Yep. That was it. That was basically everything we watched in January 2025 and one watch of February. Thanks for joining me on this first episode of this sort of like mini-series. We're going to be doing one of these at the end of every single month. So definitely stay tuned, guys. Unfortunately, we're not going to play any games this episode. So sorry if you had scrolled to the end of this episode's timeline to see if there's any games. If there wasn't, this is me talking to you right now. But we will be back with more games in the next episode, of course. So guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you very soon in the next episode of the Popcorn Podcast. Cheers.